Today we will be presenting to you the impact of attachment styles on social and emotional development. This PowerPoint presentation was created by Olivia King DeBerry, Kirby Nicholson, and Christopher Marshall. Thank you.
And here we're just talking a little bit about the overview of what we're going to be discussing today, starting off with attachment styles, the 4 different types of attachment styles, what they are, how they develop, some bit about gender influences and how those have different impacts across the attachment styles, the impact across developmental stages, which includes how it affects you from infancy all the way through to adulthood, and the importance of attachment styles. And we're going to discuss how attachment styles have influence throughout your life and what kind of influences, both positive and negative, they have on you.
All right, so before we begin, let's take a quick look at a video.
This is a home where we don't fight or argue. We just shut down.
Yep, I know. There's never any yelling. Just silence around here.
Yeah, when people are upset, we just give each other the silent treatment or pretend the issue doesn't even exist.
I know. And I feel really abandoned in the process. Like if I do or say something wrong, I'll just be abandoned. Okay, here's what I'm learning. Avoid conflict at all costs. Just pretend like it doesn't exist. In 20 years, I'll be completely avoidant and will just go along with anything my partner says so that I don't cause trouble. My own wants and needs won't matter. What will matter is not creating any situations where I'll feel rejected or like a burden. Anything to avoid the way I feel in this home.
Let's talk about those different type of attachments.
Now, there are 4 types of attachment styles. The first up is going to be our secure attachment. This develops when a child experiences consistent care and emotional availability from a primary caregiver. The child feels safe, understood, and comforted, fostering trust and confidence in their caregiver's presence. Now, behavior in strange situations with securely attached children, they may show signs of distress when separated from the caregiver, but they're easily comforted upon their return. They feel free to explore their environment while the caregiver is present, but they use their caregiver as a secure base, meaning that they will wander off for a second, come back for a few minutes, kind of go back and forth as they explore. They are generally more sociable, cooperative, and able to form positive relationship with peers and other adults. And these children tend to have better emotional regulation and resilience in handling stressful situations or challenges. Early secure attachment is linked to healthy emotional and social development throughout life. So this is the goal for all of our children, is for them to develop that secure attachment. Anxious ambivalent attachment style develops when caregivers have an inconsistent or alternating between uh, between being attentive and neglectful, leading to uncertainty in the child's emotional security. Children with this attachment style often feel insecure about whether their needs will be met, which causes them to have anxiety, and they may show clinginess towards their caregiver. Behavior in strange situations, they may show some extreme distress when separated from the caregiver, but unlike the securely attached child, they are more. It's more difficult to soothe them even once the caregiver has returned. They often display ambivalence, seeking closeness, but also resisting comfort. These children also tend to be overly dependent on their caregiver, and they frequently seek reassurance while fearing abandonment. And then they also struggle with exploring their environment, as their anxiety keeps them focused on maintaining proximity to their caregiver, so that they feel secure. In adolescence, this attachment style can manifest as clinginess or difficulty trusting their peers and or partners, combined with a heightened need for approval and attention. Adolescents may exhibit emotional instability. They'll have may have a fear of rejection and or difficulty regulating their emotions, particularly in relationships, which can lead to frustration or issues with jealousy. Now, the long-term effects can include challenges in forming secure, balanced relationships due to their persistent fear of abandonment and the insecurity that they feel. Avoided insecure attachment develops when caregivers are emotionally unavailable, they're unresponsive or dismissive of the child's needs, leading to the child to suppress emotional expression. These children learn to rely on themselves and avoid seeking comfort from caregivers as their need for closeness are often ignored or rejected. Behavior in strange situations with the avoidant child, they'll show little distress when separated from their caregiver, and they may avoid or even ignore them upon their return, showing minimal emotional response. They often appear independent and self sufficient, but are actually hiding emotional needs due to fear of rejection. They avoid seeking help or support, and then they may also suppress their feelings of distress as they've learned that expressing these emotions may lead to rejection. In social settings, they may struggle with forming close friendships, preferring to keep emotional distance from peers and avoiding vulnerability. These children may show reluctance to trust others or depend on adults, often preferring to engage in solitary activities. Long-term effects of this attachment style can contribute to difficulties with emotional intimacy, trust issues, and a tendency to withdraw from relationships in adolescence and adulthood. I have a student that it's a very noticeable. I may have more, but there is one in particular that has show signs of an avoidant, insecure attachment. I've been trying to build a level of trust with this student. Now he's very well mannered, young man, does not give me any problems. It's actually one of my students that I don't ever have any behavioral issues out of. But his need for, he will prefer to work by himself at all times. He does not engage much, and he's pretty much to himself at all times. So this is something I've been working on with him, and I'm hoping to see him change, but see some changes. But knowing now that I've learned his background from some of the other teachers, we're hoping for the best. Now, disorganized or disoriented attachment style develops in children when caregivers are a source of both comfort and fear, often due to an inconsistent or unpredictable or frightening behaviors. Examples would be neglect, or abuse, or trauma. These children express confusion and fear around their caregiver because they don't know how to respond, whether to seek comfort or avoid them, as their caregiver um, goes goes back and forth between supportive and harmful behavior. Behavior in strange situations, children that have disorganized attachment style may display um, a disorganized behavior. So they may want to approach their caregiver, but upon approaching them, they may freeze up, or they'll have like a dazed expression on their face, or they may even retreat out of fear. And it seems like they're confused or apprehensive about how the caregiver will act. They often lack a consistent strategy for dealing with separation or reunions, as their attachment figure has been a source of this fear that they have. These children may show disassociation or disengagement during stressful situations, um, appearing to withdraw or emotionally disconnect. In social settings, they may struggle with forming secure bonds. They may show signs of aggressive, unpredictable behavior towards others, may basically displaying some of the things that they've seen themselves. In adolescence, this attachment style can lead to emotional instability, problems with trust and intimacy. They also have a higher risk of mental health issues like anxiety and depression. Um, Disassociation is often linked to significant developmental challenges as well, including difficulty with emotional regulation. They may also have behavioral problems and a higher likelihood of repeating the dysfunctional patterns that they've seen once they're in adulthood as well. Now, there is much still to be learned about the gender influences on attachment styles. Um, but the information that we found here are that girls are often socialized in our society to be more rational and emotionally expressive. they may be encouraged to seek closeness and support, leading them to have more pronounced anxious or ambivalent attachment styles when their needs are inconsistently met. Whereas with boys, they're typically encouraged to be independent and emotionally resilient. So this can lead to an avoidant attachment style where they suppress their emotional needs, or they may even struggle to seek help or comfort just because this is what has been taught that this is what men do. Now, both genders, when it comes to secure attachment, can exhibit secure attachment when caregivers are responsive. However, girls may be more likely to express their emotions and seek validation, where boys may display their secure attachment through their independence. Now, with the anxious ambivalent attachment styles, girls may show greater emotional expression and seek reassurance, while the boys may feel more conflicted due to societal expectation around the independence, leading to anxiety in their relationships. Avoidant attachment style, girls with avoidant attachment may still seek connection, but they may suppress their emotional needs, where the boys may align more with societal norms of toughness, leading to an increased emotional distance and reluctance to express their vulnerability because of the way that they've been shown that these are how males behave. So boys tend to show a higher males tend to show a higher rate of avoidant attachment styles versus females. Disorganized attachment, both genders may display confusion and fear, but boys might express this through aggression or externalized behaviors, while girls may show more internalized behaviors like anxiety or depression. Girls with anxious attachment may become overly reluctant on their partners for emotional validation, leading to feelings of jealousy or insecurity. Boys with avoidant attachment styles might withdraw emotionally when faced with conflict or stress, leading to feelings of neglect in their partner because they built this wall up where they're not supposed to show their emotions. And so therefore they're not quite sure how to do it. Disorganized attachment can create significant challenges in relationship for both genders, manifesting as emotional instability, fear of intimacy, or unpredictable behaviors.
Okay, so now we're going to discuss the impact of attachment styles across major developmental periods. So let's start with the initial stage, the infant and preschool years. The early attachment bond between the mother and the infant is crucial for normal development. Oftentimes, infants protest when their mothers leave, and then they appear to show comfort when the parent returns. This is also true for when infants and toddlers are in distress and they seek that attachment figure. There are some early studies on evolution that suggest that the attachment bond between the parent and the infant often was promoted by survival instincts in order to protect infants from predators and exposure to elements. Because we know that can cause fatal outcomes in species when they're separated too soon. Another important behavior communicated by infants is through crying, smiling, and babbling, just to name a few. These are some of the signals that are often used to communicate their needs at that time. So the response to signaling behaviors can also have negative impacts if the responses are unpredictable, if they're slow, or if they don't match the child's needs. During early childhood, we know that children can find a way to handle stress, and that is often characterized by the attachment category that they fit into, as we discussed earlier in some of the slides. These categories predict social behavior and emotional development that starts in early childhood and can impact the child through the adolescent and adult periods. The early attachment pattern can influence the child's selection of environments, the type of engagement and activities within their environment, and even different experiences they may have within those environments throughout the course of their childhood. Children also become more aware of themselves as individuals. They start separating from others. They develop their own thinking styles. And this leads to their own feelings and emotions, which, of course, can affect development. Children of parents with avoidant attachment styles often develop more aggression and externalizing disorders, and some children may develop an inflated self esteem. On the other hand, children that develop anxiety as a result of their parents' attachment styles often show more passivity, victimization, and they may have difficulty with those internalizing behaviors. During the adolescent period, we often see more emotional regulation and social competence among individuals with secure attachment. Chris will talk more about social competence and emotional wellness in a later slide. But this is often the developmental period where those behaviors start to develop. On the other hand, children that have insecure attachments are often at a greater risk for negative emotional outcomes. This disorganized attachment can also lead to dissociative symptomology. The adolescent period is significant for courtships and selection of mates. So often this phase begins with increased attachment to peers, and children start to separate from their previous attachment figure, who is often their parent, in that close bond that they develop during infancy. So we do know that attachment is considered to be a lifelong process of forming affectionate bonds with people, including romantic partners, which become important during adulthood, which continues to be impacted by appropriate social and emotional functioning skills. This phase highlights the establishment of marriages, further separating from the parent attachment, and often the child rearing phases creates a new attachment between that parent and their new child. Additional life stresses include finding careers and leaving the home, which may also lead to stressful situations, and the response pattern can be impacted by the attachment bond that was established during childhood. Oftentimes, individuals with an avoidance style often have low commitments and engage in more casual sexual relationships. People that are more anxious may often have an intense desire for a relationship and may go to great lengths to maintain their relationship, as they may fear being alone. Another important impact during this phase is the newly adult detaching from their parent, and their parent may reattach themselves to their grandchild, which is a significant part in this developmental stage. The last developmental period that we're going to look at involves late adulthood. This developmental stage is characterized by the important midlife crisis that people often go through when they realize they have not accomplished the life goals that they had set for themselves, and the timeline of their life didn't go as planned. Individuals may also be rediscovering their identity at this age due to a divorce or death of a life partner. And the way they're able to handle that separation can depend on the type of attachment bond they developed. Additionally, this phase may also see more stress-related concerns due to health, finances, and worrying, as well as other serious complaints, which can affect interactions and relations with others, including their own children, who may be disinterested in caring for their aging parent due to their own lifestyle and independence. And lastly, spiritual attachments become more important at this stage due to aging and experiences with death and grief at this life stage. So whether we look at the infant that's crying, the preschooler struggling to share a toy, an adolescent trying to impress a friend, an adult seeking a job, a grandparent coping with loneliness, or the effects of aging towards death, While all of our needs obviously do not have to be met in order to be satisfied, individuals are often comforted and secured in being able to carry out normal life functions and adapt to various situations with those positive attachment styles.
Now we're going to be talking a bit about the importance of attachment styles throughout development and throughout life. To start off, we're going to be talking about social competence. Some of the positives are it gives you more effective social functioning, which basically means you're more skilled at social communication and relationships and creating and making stable and strong ones. It also improves positive affect. So you see things in a more positive light and you're a more generally positive individual. It also creates a positive bias in social situations. You're more likely to see the bright side of a social interaction and be less likely to take a negative feeling from social interactions. You have an increased willingness to socially engage, which basically means you are more interested in exploring and reaching out in social situations because you have that stable base you can always go back to for safety. So you feel more open and willing to reach out and connect with other individuals. There are some negatives, however. It can inhibit the ability to form discomfort in negative relationships, which is to mean that in a not good connection or social relationship, you may be less willing or able to see the inherent flaws in that connection, and it may lead you to maintain that positive bias, even if it is not the best thing. Next up, we have emotional well-being. There are some positives for this as well. Helps you develop healthy emotional bonds. Helps you with the exploration of new environments. As we mentioned previously, you're more willing to reach out to those, but it also helps you in performing that exploration. It benefits life satisfaction. So generally people with a secure or positive attachment style have a higher level of life satisfaction. Additionally, it decreases perceived stress and somatic expression. Basically, situations throughout life are going to be less stressful to you and lead to less somatic symptom response because you have that more positive affect and bias already. Negatives, on the other hand, there are some unsatisfactory early social relationships. So if a relationship does not go well, you can sometimes have a greater effect because you have that positive bias, and one negative interaction can have a much deeper impact. It can lead to repression of emotions, distortion in thinking, and as mentioned, a greater stress impact. Because of all this, you have a more positive outlook initially. So when the negative thing comes in, it creates a more impactful outcome of the negative. Effective interpersonal skills. Healthy early attachments will lead to better mental health. So that secure attachment helps create a long-term benefit to mental health. You become better at emotional expression and understanding one's own feelings. So you better recognize and are better able to express or explain how you are feeling and why you are feeling that way. Additionally, it improves your ability to perceive others' emotions and reactions to help understand and have a bit more empathy for other individuals. Finally, in younger children, in early childhood, it helps rein in some more of that chaotic temperament sometimes, some of that more outlandish or wild temperament in some children. So that secure attachment can help create that safe base and more stable outcomes for them. Finally is the perception of relationships. Relationships with others become organized into patterns that we tend to repeat. So those early beginning relationships of like secure attachment with our parents help us create good relationships with people in our future in the rest of our lives as well. Positive and negative experiences manifest through behaviors, thoughts, and feelings. So continuing down that path of, if you have good relationship through that secure attachment, you'll continue to have good behaviors, thoughts, and feelings, a more positive outlook and affect in life. It also helps create stronger connections to loved ones, such as parents and others. You feel more connected when you are securely attached. You feel happier in those connections and those social relationships. Finally, here are our references. Thank you all for watching.